Hello there and welcome to Luminar NEO All Sliders Explained, the show where we describe and explain you every single slider in this powerful photo editing application. Now, if you've never been here before, my name is Jakub and I'm a creator and founder of Clever Photographer. Now, before we're going to start, I have a few things I want to cover. First of all, at the end of the video, we're going to give you our own and very popular Luminar NEO shortcut cheat sheet. So stay until the end so you can get your own copy. The second, if you want to follow us along, make sure you head into the description, follow the link there and get your sample files before we're going to start. If you don't own Luminar NEO, you can also follow the link in the description and use our own discount code Clever Photographer. That way you get additional 20% off and you can get your own copy. And finally, we want to ask you to like and comment on our videos and also follow our channel so we can keep creating content like this. In this video tutorial, we're going to be looking at another professional tool here in Luminar NEO and also at another color grading tool available in this photo editing software. Now, more specifically, we will be looking at Color Harmony tool. Now, once again, we are here in Luminar NEO, we are in Edit module, and we are almost at the end of our toolbar looking at the professional section and today focusing on Color Harmony. Now, the Color Harmony tool offers several advanced options for precise color control. While you likely won't need all of the sliders for each image, it's helpful to be familiar with them. So that's what we're going to do today. Now, this is probably one of the most complicated tools here in Luminar NEO, and that's why we're going to take it step by step. Now, this is a good time to remind you that if you want to follow me along, you need to head into the description of this video, click on the link there and head to our Dropbox account where you can download the sample files so you can do the edits on your own computer. Now, this is example number 1, and we're going to use it to explain the first two sliders, Brilliance and Warmth. Starting with the Brilliance. This slider is useful for creating rich colors in a photo. Now, the Brilliance slider is very similar to the Vibrant slider in Color and also in the Develop tool. So you can find it in a color section here. Let's go back to our Color Harmony and let's try the slider. So we have the Brilliant slider, and when we shift it towards the right, we make the picture more saturated and vibrant. And when we shift it the other way around, we are removing the saturation from the image. Now, two things to remind you here. Number one, when you're trying these sliders and when you're trying to learn, make sure you shift them as much as you can so you can really see the difference on your own images and you can understand what they do. The second thing, if you want to reset any of the sliders, all you need to do is to double click on their name. So the Brilliant slider, very similar to the Vibrance, pushing the saturation and vibrance of the image. Moving to the Warmth. Now, this slider controls the color temperature in the image and it can be used to stylize an image. Positive values warm the image while negative values tone it down. Now, very similarly, again, coming back to the Develop module and looking at the Color tab, it's very similar to the temperature slider here. So let's go back again to the Color Harmony, and when we push the Warm slider towards the right, we make the picture warmer. And when we push it towards the left, we make the overall picture cooler. So those were the first two sliders. And now we're going to look at the second set of sliders called Color Contrast. But for that, we're going to need another example picture. So for that, we're going to go inside of the Catalog module. And here inside, we're going to use this color wheel. So we're going to click on it and click on Edit to bring it back to the Edit module. Here in the Edit module, once again, we are focusing on the professional section of the toolbar and more specifically at the Color Harmony. Now, as you can see, there is 1, 2, 3, 4 sections, and we are focusing on the second section called Color Contrast. If for some reason you don't see it, all you need to do is to click on this little arrow and it will open and close. So what does the Color Contrast section do? This tool lets you choose a color range to which you will apply contrast. Objects of the selected color will become lighter, while objects with the opposite color on the color wheel will become darker. This effect can help make flat images pop based on the color in the image. So now you can understand why we're using the color wheel. Now there are two types of contrast in a photography. The luminance contrast, where we're creating contrast by making some parts of the image darker and other brighter. And then there is the color contrast. And in order to bring some order to it, this tool is using the color wheel and it's using the opposite colors for it. So for example, when we're gonna make the reds brighter, the blues on the opposite side of the color wheel will become darker. And similarly, when we're gonna choose orange, some of the blue-violet will become darker. And then when we go around and let's say we pick the blues, then the blues will become brighter and reds will become darker. So that's how this tool works, and it's really simple. So to start with, let's have a look at the sliders, starting with the amount. This slider controls the contrast created between the color differences. The stronger the amount, the more contrast between the primary and secondary color. So for us, the primary color, starting looking at the hue, is red. So the red section will become brighter as we're gonna slide the slider, and the blue section will become darker. So let me show you the proof of this. So we're gonna shift the amount, and as I'm doing it, you can see how this side is becoming brighter and how the blue is becoming darker, all the way until pretty much the reds completely disappear. Now that's the amount slider. Now let's have a look at the hue. So the hue slider helps you to choose the target color for the color contrast tool. So at the moment we are on red. So let's see how this works. Let's bring the amount down a little bit so we can actually recognize the color on the color wheel. Somewhere around here so you can see it's red. And now we're gonna shift it. So let's go somewhere to yellow. And as we're moving, you can see how the brighter areas are moving towards the yellows and the darker areas are moving in the opposite direction. So we are on yellow. Now we're gonna go into the greens. So this section will become brighter and this section will become darker. So we go towards the green and you just watch the screen how it really works. And then we can keep moving on. We're gonna go onto the blues, and that's where our blues are becoming brighter and our reds, pinks and oranges are becoming darker. And then when you really push all the way around the color wheel, you get back until you get again this part being brighter and this part being darker. Now I will show you on a real example in a moment how this works. However, this is the very basic and theory of how the color contrast tool works here. So you basically use the two opposite colors on the color wheel. You make one brighter and one darker. And the one which will be brighter will be the one you choose by using the hue slider. So I think that's quite simple. Once you see it on the wheel, I think that's quite self-explanatory. So I hope this was helpful. And we're gonna move on the next set of tools here. So the next set of sliders here is called split color warmth. And once again, for that, we will need another example image. So we will go back to the catalog. And in catalog, we're gonna use this image right here. So we select it, we click on edit. Once again, going at the bottom of our list, opening the color harmony, making sure that we can see all of this. And now let's talk about this split color warmth tool. So this tool can be used to selectively enhance the cool and warm tones in your image. It allows you to increase the color contrast and vibrancy or create creative toning effects. You can separately adjust the warm colors and cool colors. Now I really love this tool because it's very handy for landscape photography. Usually when you're using the warmth color or when you're using the white balance, you're adjusting the whole image. You're either adding warmth to everything or you're adding cool colors to everything. Where in this case, you can do it separately for the warm parts of the image and the cool parts of the image. So starting with the warm, what you need to do is to drag this slider to the left to neutralize the warm tones such as yellows and reds, and to the right to enhance them. And let's finish it off with the cool slider. And what you need to do here is to drag this slider to the left to cool down the blues, aqua and cyan, and to the right to neutralize and warm the colors up. So let's try it. First of all, let's look at our example here. So obviously we have a blue and warm, which are the typical representation of our warmth on the yellow side on our image and the blue of the cool colors on our image. So let's say we want to take our warm colors in the image and we want to make them warmer. So for that, we would use the warm slider. So when we go towards the right, you can see that we're making this warmer. However, the blue doesn't get affected at all. It's staying exactly the way it is. So this is why this tool is really good, because you can selectively change the warmth in the specific areas of your image. Now, when you go the other way around, when you go towards the left, you can see that we're making the warm colors cooler, which is brilliant. Once again, we can reset it by double-clicking on its name, and we can move to the cool side. So now we're talking about the blue color, representing the cool colors on our image. So again, by going with the cool slider towards the right, we make them warmer. Again, not affecting the yellow color and the warm part of our image at all. And we can go the other way around to make it much more cooler. Once again, not affecting the yellows at all. So this is why this tool is great, as you can make very local detail adjustments with it. And to finish the color harmony tool, we will look at the last set of sliders. This time they called color balance. So for this, once again, we're gonna need another sample image. So we're gonna go back to catalog and we're gonna use this image. So we click on it, we click on edit, bring it into edit module. Once again, go down to our color harmony and focusing on our color balance section. So the color balance tool is useful for changing the overall mix of colors in an image for general color correction. It can be also used for creative color control within the different tone regions of an image. So it sounds very complicated. However, it's actually very, very easy. So first of all, let's look at the drop-down box here. So as you can see, we have options between shadows, midtones, and highlights. So let's talk about the difference between them. The shadows represent the darkest part of your image. So we're talking about these parts and the sky and also parts of the tree. Then we have the highlights. Now the highlights represent the brightest parts of your image. So we're talking about the sun, some parts of the sky, and definitely some parts of the field here. And anything that is between is called midtones. And you will see in a moment how we're going to work with that. So we have a drop-down box here with 3 different options. And then we have 3 color balance sliders here. And by using them, you can adjust the balance of cyan and red, magenta and green, and yellow and blue to emphasize certain colors in each tonal region. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to adjust the colors in shadows, we're going to adjust the colors in midtones, and we're going to adjust the colors in highlights. So let's try and start with the shadows. So once again, we're focusing on the darker area of the image, and let's start by looking at the cyan or red. So you can make them more red or you can make them more cyan. So let's start with that. We can make these areas darker and redder. You can see it specifically on this area as there is more of it. Or you can go the other way around and make it more cooler, as you can see it on this part. You can also see it on the bottom of the image. Again, same way to reset it, double click on them. Now, then we can also work around with the green. So there's some green on the field and in the trees. So we can make the green greener by going this way. As you can see, it's getting much greener. Or we can go the other way around and actually make it more magenta-like. Now the last 2 sliders, the magenta and green and yellow and blue, are actually very similar to your classic white balance. The difference here is that you can change it in shadows, midtones, and highlights rather than for the overall image. So we were doing magenta and green. Now let's have a look at the yellow and blue. So if there is some yellow on the image, we can make it more yellow. So as you can see, the sun and parts of the sky can become much, much more yellow. Or we can go the other way around and actually cool them down until they become almost dark. So that's for the shadows. Now let's have a look at the highlights, so the brighter parts of the image. Once again, be focusing on these areas, the sun, and maybe some parts of the field. So again, the areas which are red or cyan, we can make them more red. So you see specifically on this part of the sky how that works. Or you can go the other way around, make it more cooler by going towards the cyan color. Then we can look at the green and magenta. Again, looking at the brighter parts where there is some green, we can make it greener, or we can make it more magenta-like. And then finally, with the yellow and blue, we can make it warmer, or we can make it cooler. So this is how this works. Of course, we can also give it a try to the midtones. Similarly, we're looking at anything between the highlights and shadows. So again, with the red, we can go more on the red and we kind of working on this part of the image, or we can make it more cool when we go the other way. And again, we can do that with the magenta and green. And finally, with the yellow and blue, you can make the midtones warmer or cooler. Now this is it. Those were the 4 sets of sliders here in the color harmony. And I think to wrap it all up, let's jump into another example where I'll show you how we can use all of these tools to edit it. Now to finish this tutorial, I want to show you how we can use all of these tools on one example picture. So for this, we're going to be using this nighttime New York image. And if you followed me for some other videos, you remember that we use this for the toning tool. We use this image to create the Hollywood look. And we're going to do something similar. However, this time we're going to use the color harmony tool. If you haven't seen the toning tutorial, there will be a link to it in the corner of your screen sometimes now. So we select the image, we click on edit to bring it into the edit module, and we're going back one more time to the color harmony. So now let's take it step by step. We're going to start at the top and we're going to add a little bit of brilliance. We're going to make it more vibrant. Not crazy, but just something like this. I really want the color to stand out. Now with the warmth, I would actually like the picture to be all a little bit cooler. So we're going to go towards the cooler side. Not too much, just somewhere around 10. So that's the first set of sliders. Now, before I do anything else, I like to jump into the color balance because the other effects we can use after. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go into our shadows, and to create the Hollywood effect, we want the shadows to be green or blue, something between. So let me show you how we're going to do that. We are in the shadows and we want the cyan and red go towards the cyan quite heavily. Then in our magenta and green, we don't want a magenta in the shadows, we want a green in the shadows. And then in the yellow and blue, we want the shadows to be more on a cooler side, so we want them blue. So we're creating cyan, green, blue effect in the shadows. So let's really push it so it's really visible, and we leave it like this. Now we look at it before and after. And then we can move to the highlights. So now instead of shadows, we're going to be working on highlights. And in highlights, we actually want the highlights to be warm. So we're going to go, rather than cyan, we're going to go towards the red on our first slider. Not too much, but a little bit. On magenta green, we're going to go towards the magenta. And on our yellow and blue, we're going to go towards the warm colors. So this is how you create the Hollywood look. If you ever seen any Hollywood movie, specifically the action movies, this is the kind of typical look. They have the blue cyan green look in the shadows of the image, and then they have the warm magenta red in their highlights. So just like you see on this image here. Now you can have a look again before and after, and I think the result is looking really good. Now we can of course jump into the midtones, and then it's really up to us to see what we like. Let's have a look, cyan or red. I think maybe towards the cyan a little bit. With the magenta, I think maybe a little bit towards the magenta here, and with the yellow and blue, it's up to us really. I think maybe more towards the blue here. Then we can move to our split color warmth here. So we have our warm colors, the taxi, some of the signs, some of the neons. So what we can do, we can make it either warmer, which I think that's what we want to do, or we can make them cooler, but we want them warmer. We want to take the tones in our highlights, which we already made warmer, as you can see here, and we want to push them even more. And then for our cool areas, which are the road and some of the shadows and the sky and so on, we definitely want to make them cooler. So we'll do that by pushing the cool slider there. And then the color contrast, we can use it if we want to. What we could do is we could select yellow. So we bring the amount up just so we can see the difference somewhere around here. Then we move our slider towards the yellow. And now we just bring it down until we like the result. So what we basically doing now is, because we selected the yellow, we said make the yellow brighter and make the opposite color, which is somewhere around the blue, make it darker. So let's have a look at the before and after. This is before and after. And this is how you can use the color harmony on an example like this. And now to finish the tutorial, we're gonna run through the tool again. We have a color harmony here on our professional side of the toolbar. And inside we have 4 sets of sliders. Starting with the top, we have a brilliance, which very much affects the vibrance and saturation of the image. And then we have the warm slider, which very much works similarly to the white balance slider, where we can make the image warmer or cooler. Then we have the color contrast. This is the opposition of your luminance contrast, where you can basically pick 2 opposite colors and make one brighter and darker. You use the amount slider by adjusting the amount of contrast, and you use the hue slider by selecting the opposite colors. The one you selected will be the brighter color. Then we have the split color warmth. This is very handy tool where you want to do local adjustments. You can make your warm colors in the image warmer or cooler, and you can make your cool parts of image, the cooler colors, warmer or cooler. And finally, we have the real color grading tool called color balance, and this is where you can change the color balance for highlights, shadows and midtones by using the 3 sets of slider, the cyan and red, magenta and green, a yellow and blues. So now it's time to get your own Luminar NEO shortcut cheat sheet. All you have to do is to head to our website cleverphotographer.com/luminargift and get it right now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had fun and I hope you learned something new. Please don't forget to follow our channel and also check out our other videos covering Luminar NEO. For today, thank you very much for watching. My name was Jakub and I can't wait to see you in the next one.